All right, hey guys, welcome to the Craft Talk video on imagery. Obviously, poetry is known for its keen ability to describe things, places, and people. It's a part of what makes poetry so special. Descriptions help us elevate the world around us and find the beauty in everything. So I'm going to break down some of the execution methods of description within poetry. Description can also be referred to as imagery, and oftentimes is referred to as imagery. Boiling it down, you are giving the reader an image to see in their head. You are using descriptions to best get across the image you are producing. There are different types of imagery and different ways of putting across your image. First, I want to discuss how to avoid cliche and overused descriptions. How many of you have heard a rose being described as beautiful, or the sun described as shining, or storms described as raging, or even flowers described as dancing in the wind? Probably more than once. We really want to avoid using cliche phrases and descriptions because they don't introduce anything new or unique to the reader. Readers oftentimes come to poetry to gain insight on new things. If your imagery isn't giving them anything fresh or new, then the poem as a whole takes a hit. There are a few dichotomies in imagery that play a large part in poetry. The first is concrete images versus abstract images. Concrete images are what grounds the reader in a piece. It is a clear-cut, specific description of something that the reader can actively and easily picture. Use the five senses to help gain traction in a concrete description. It is usually about an object or a person. For example, I could say this about my coffee cup. I drank a Keurig coffee from my childhood mug, lima bean colored with Mike Wazowski's face staring back at me as I sipped. So I'm giving you not only the color of the mug, but what type of coffee I was drinking, my emotional connection to the mug, and ultimately the quirky face plastered on the front of it. The more specific you can be in your description, the more worldly it becomes. Abstract descriptions are usually about things we can't grasp as easily. Oftentimes it relies on abstractions such as beauty, lust, sorrow, grief, nostalgia. While as readers, we understand the context of those words, it's not as powerful as a concrete image that shows us those feelings. Abstractions often tell the reader what to feel rather than showing them. However, it's okay to let your abstract side fly. If you have a weird and wonky poem, by all means, feel your abstractness, but make sure to balance out the abstract with the concrete so the reader has somewhere to ground themselves. Too many abstract descriptions can often leave a reader feeling confused and wondering what the heck they just read. You don't want them feeling lost in the clouds by the end of your piece. I think alongside that, oftentimes writers think that being mysterious is the key to poetry. Please throw that idea out the window. While it is okay to make your reader work a little bit to understand your poem, I mean, what's the fun in having everything just spelled out to you? Don't actively shroud your piece in some mysterious aura. You're not making it more poetic, you're just confusing the reader. The next duo is high and low images. Think of this as the way we see beauty in our society. High images are oftentimes automatically thought of as beautiful, such as a chandelier or an orange blossom. They are naturally higher up on our beauty scale because they are in fact beautiful. Not much work is needed to be done to make these images beautiful. Low images are what society typically deems as ugly or commonplace. Think of a plastic grocery bag or a chewed up straw laying on the edge of a table. You aren't automatically going to have hard eyes when you see these things in real life. However, a good poet knows how to transform the ugly into beautiful via description. Here's an example of a low image that's been elevated. We pass the Walmart, our descent illuminated, its lights flicker like the North Star. Here, we're taking something as commonplace as Walmart and comparing it to something beautiful and grandiose like the North Star. This description elevates the original image and also gives notes of religious and fairy tale-like connotations. It's doing a lot of work there. Like the previous duo, it's important to balance the highs and lows. You don't want to have too much of one thing. You always want to show variety. Another element to think about when it comes to descriptions is the quantity and how you disperse your images. If you have a ton of descriptions, one after the other, this will oversaturate your poem and oftentimes stray away from the meat of the poem, its theme, and the story it's telling. Try to relocate descriptions throughout your poem. Don't have too much in one place because it could hinder a reader's comprehension. In the spirit of being specific, This chair is so creaky. There is such a thing as too much description. Don't spend an entire 4 stanzas describing a wooden drawer if it's a minor player to the rest of the poem. Be as precise and concise as possible. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to find exactly what that sweet spot is of just enough description. When describing people, a lot of the same rules apply. Try to avoid cliches like glittering eyes or furrowed brows. Try to notice aspects of the face that are often looked over, perhaps a tiny scar that hides underneath the shadow of a brow bone, or lips that are sunburned, chapped, and peeling. Ultimately, descriptions that wow readers are ones that are fresh and unique, that perhaps shock or make the reader a little uncomfortable at first, and ones that really paint a clear picture.